Hello, my name is Anil Nixon, and this is my final project research essay over my current issue um, about mass incarceration skyrocketing among African American minorities. What if I told you that the system designed to protect us might actually be harming us? That justice, instead of being blind, is watching with one eye open, and it is not in our favor. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects every single one of us, whether directly or indirectly. The rise of crime and the flawed system that claims to control it. It's time we shed light on the truth behind crime and punishment in our society. Every day, people fall victim to a system that was meant to safeguard them. The scales of justice are no longer equal. They're rigged. And the truth is, we've normalized it. We've accepted it, and we've accepted harsh sentences, racial biases, unequal opportunity, and a growing prison population, just as it is. But it doesn't have to be just how it is. That's why I chose the topic. Because behind every statistic is a story. Behind every law is a motive. And behind every punishment, there's a deeper question we must ask ourselves. Is this justice or just another form of control? Today, we're pulling back the curtain and we're just exposing the truth. For centuries, crime and punishment has increased drastically, especially in the time period I live in. During the explanation on this topic, I looked for reasoning crime excelled rapidly over time, as well as the differentiations of crime and punishment. My reason for writing about this subject is because no one is enlightened on the emphasis of crime and punishment and how it was supposed to be created to discipline those doing wrong, but many are taken advantage of by the system. I went about my research by reading chapters in my sociology textbook and research using Loic Waquan as one of my key sociologists to the topic at hand, and found contrasting insights on the issue. Modern society has a wretched history, from slavery to Jim Crow laws, down to unequal opportunity, not only in the society, but in the work industry when people thought they finally made it and had equal rights. We have people such as merchants, which is also known as business people, within the government structuring society the way they feel is right and what is acceptable by them and them only, including the justice system. The justice system was legalized and initiated to penalize those of their wrongdoing, but the justice system as we know today is completely biased to that. Punishment are too harsh for certain crimes. What was a system for the people is now against the people. Crimes committed by a black man, such as slapping a white man, may get an extraordinary punishment, such as serving almost 3 years. On the contrary, a white man could slap an African American and may get probation, if he gets anything at all. This society lacks the true meaning of equality and making America, quote unquote, great again. Power and wealth greatly influence opportunities in today's society. This power and wealth of the world leads to an action that some may know as deviance. Deviance is nonconformity to a given set of norms that are accepted by the people of a community or society, which is stated in my sociology textbook titled Essentials of Sociology in Chapter 1 of page 160. Deviance is the act of people initiating what is normal and what is not when it comes to a criminal bias. As an example of a deviance act would be underage drinking. Underage drinking is a crime, but most people related to Generation Y drinks illegally almost every day and sees it as a normal trend, sees it as something fun to do. Devious acts are not always related to crime. As an example of this would be the excessive trend of foolish hairstyles and clothes, as well as joining a religious cult. Now let's take you guys back to history. Many see America as one of the greatest countries on earth, but most are not educationally and historically informed on what America has done in order to uphold such a privilege of being great, such a privilege of power. Most of the country's population are unaware that America was built off the misery of others, that America is the land of takers. Abraham Lincoln used his presidency powers after the Civil War to abolish slavery. It was known that slavery had finally ended January 1st of 1863, but all slaves were not yet free until the 13th Amendment was passed February 1st of 1865, which is originally 2 years after all slaves were titled as free. It was believed that the 13th Amendment was used to help end slavery and that blacks could no longer become enslaved. Yet, this amendment was also designed to re-enslave African Americans as a punishment. The reality to this amendment was to incarcerate and enslave blacks at the end of slavery. The people of higher authority proposed the 13th Amendment and used it frequently because it was the only way to enslave blacks, mostly targeting the black man. Many black people were re-enslaved for minor offenses for prolonged periods of time. Some minor offenses would be walking through a white neighborhood at night or being found without an ID. White supremacists will make up charges and uphold minor offenses to its highest point just to incarcerate African Americans. This is where the process of free labor again comes into hand that allowed other whites to become gradually rich off free labor. The penitentiary was based on free labor being titled as modernized slavery. Throughout the 1980s and the 1990s, drug war led to an increase in incarceration rates for black people. In the 1980s, the crack epidemic suddenly and shockingly swept through the ghetto. Ordinary people, as well as blacks, that were headed to be successful in life became either drug dealers or drug addicts due to people outside of this region and community sticking drugs inside the ghetto. This situation broke up a lot of homes and families because majority of all African American men were incarcerated, if not junkies. Now let's take you guys to the background of incarceration. Incarceration is the state or act of being confined in prison. Incarceration first began in Philadelphia in the year of 1970. This system came about in the United States when the Walnut Street Jail created a new cell house within the jail and produced a conclusion to use the cells for confinement of those convicted. Incarceration rates of inmates incarcerated under the state and federal law from the 1900s to the 2000s continued to drastically increase. The Great Depression in the early 1930s led to a spike in incarceration because of one's economic and physical needs. There was an extreme need for labor after the Great Depression. Frederick D. Roosevelt assisted with a helping hand to the Great Depression by creating welfare to help others and making the rich pay at least 97% of taxes. This did decline incarceration rates. In addition, incarceration rates were still low in the 1940s due to World War II, but rapidly increased once Clinton was elected to office. Clinton changed the welfare policy that mainly affected the increase in women's incarceration rates. African Americans have always been incarcerated more than whites, more than any race for that matter. And a more depth understanding, the main imprisonment was black men from ages 20 through 34. The overall insight is not just black men, but mainly poor, uneducated black men. It is statistically shown that more than half of America's black prison inmates are functionally illiterate. Acknowledging the fact that blacks never nearly had the same opportunities as whites and other races gives one reason to the infirmity of incarceration. This situation gives leeway to make the imprisonment of African Americans much easier. Because if you're not knowledgeable at all, how can you be knowledgeable about the rights, about your rights? Even if it is unfair or prejudiced imprisonment, the fact that most African Americans were illiterate and weren't knowledgeable nor educated gave leeway to make imprisonment of African Americans much easier. Being a black man in America has way more barriers than just being black. Gender is also a known factor that modern society can capitalize on. Sets of circumstances such as these relates to what Quant would describe the movement of blacks in the society shifting from slavery to mass incarceration. Quant is a sociologist from France, specializing in urban sociology, urban poverty, racial inequality, the body, social theory, and ethnography. Quant is famously known for announcing the intriguing truth of factors people face on a day-to-day basis. Some of his known books are Prisons of Poverty, Punishing the Poor, and Daily Symbiosis. All of his books regard and highlights the vital issues of race and class for those who failed to realize the American dream. As Quant stated in 2002. Quant's whole theory of mass incarceration is to highlight what the actual problem is. Quant places the whole life of society into four peculiar institutions. Slavery, which is the first start of it. Then we move into the Jim Crow era. Then we move into the ghetto. And after that, the fourth, we have the dark ghetto, which is also known as the hyper ghetto. These sectors are responsible for the control and punishment of African Americans. According to Quant, African Americans now live in the first prison society of history. The population of imprisonment as a form of criminal punishment is rapidly increasing at shockingly high rates. People are relying and spending their money on prisons so much. As an example of this will be the strategy and the investment from the black all-star basketball player, Michael B. Jordan, who invested most of his money on imprisonment. Instead of investing his money into educating African American minorities, he invested his money into prisons, creating new prisons, extending prisons, remodeling cells and blocks within prisons. Prison budget spending has increased 6 times more within years. In addition, more money is being spent on prisons and prison improvement than what is being spent on schools. McQuan has now discovered that race is not the main problem anymore in society. Mass incarceration is increasing because of the overwhelming profit of America. According to his theory, prison is the neoliberal answer to poverty because of the shortage of public services. Public services such as welfare, employment, and the collapse of the hyper gentrification of urban areas, as stated in McQuan's book, Prisons of Poverty. Imprisonment was created to strip blacks of their civil liberties even after prison. If a person is lucky to get relief from prison, he or she now walks around with the characterization of a felon on their backs, lowering their advantages in life even more. An example of this would be the right to vote and get certain jobs if you do have a felony on your record. Conclusively, prison is not an implement set up for law enforcement. It has changed to something greater, a core political institution where neoliberalism, capitalist forms. Incarceration is a setup to wipe out African Americans. There is no longer any room for blacks within the capitalist society. The government doesn't need blacks anymore economically. The references that I used for this research assignment would be the book of Essentials of Sociology, the 7th edition, by W.W. Norton, or by Gideon's A off of W.W. Norton. Would be Local Quant's book, published in 1999, also titled, which is titled Prisons of Poverty, by the University of Minnesota Press. Local Quant's second book, From Slavery to Mass Incarceration, published in 2002. This was retrieved to me from the New Left Review site. Local Quant's third book of Punishing the Poor, which was a very great reference and source, which was published in 2009, given to me and retrieved by the Duke University Press, as well as sociology lecture notes from a Sociology 2023 course that I had given by Professor Charles Watson. Hope you guys enjoyed this essay and gained information from this assignment. And have a great one.